I think anytime it brings harm to yourself or to others, and that, of course, could be a subjective decision about when it's harmful. I think when it harms you at work, you can't achieve your goals, you can't meet your responsibilities at home. Because of the anger, it breaks up relationships, or it causes you to lose your job. It causes you to go into a road rage and get a ticket, or maybe even hurt somebody. I think that might be when you'd say anger is harmful. And, of course, anger can be harmful. I think inside it can turn into depression when it's held in and not expressed in a healthy way. So we really promote on our site, what'sgoodaboutanger.com, how to turn anger into a healthy energy and into healthy behaviors and healthy thinking.
Tell me a little bit more about your website and your book and how you came to become an anger management specialist.
Well, yeah, let me start out with a little personal story. And actually, I do come from a divorced home, so I think your listeners would be interested in that. So I know a little bit about anger, and I know about abuse that went on in the home, and so before the divorce, and during the divorce, it caused a lot of instability. So there were a lot of feelings of anger, and a lot of the anger that I felt was from sadness through the divorce, but it helped me to get stronger as a person and stronger in my faith. So personally, we share our stories in our book, What's Good About Anger. We have 2 editions. One is a faith edition, which is the first edition, and the second is a second edition, which is more practical and talks more about the skills and about stress management and cognitive and behavioral change. So basically, I would say that I was self-motivated, but also as a counselor, I really wanted to help others, and I wanted to help religious people who think that anger is sinful, to see that anger can be a good emotion or force that can be used for good. And basically, that's how I got into giving the seminars and writing the book. And then the co-author in the book, Ted Griffin, comes from a very dysfunctional family with an alcoholic father, and he shares his story in there about his anger at his dad and how it almost ruined his marriage, so almost leading to a divorce. So he shares about that, and then we work on teaching how to turn that into evidence-based skills that can really make a change in your life, stress management, cognitive and behavioral change.
Okay. And what advice would you give our viewers for disarming, managing, or expressing anger in both us and in others, like with our children and our spouses?
Well, I think we have to manage it in ourselves first before we can help anybody else. And so starting with yourself in just being able to identify where you're going wrong with your anger when it's actually escalating. We teach in the book that anger rears its head very quickly within 1 to 3 seconds physiologically. The hormones kick in, and you could fly into a rage if that's the kind of pattern that or response that you've learned. And so basically, we really encourage people to begin to change their thinking beforehand, because a lot of people have hot self-talk, or they might have biases or certain cognitive distortions going on that really feed into it. I have to be right. I have to have my way. And so that kind of thinking is going to make it very difficult in relationships to maintain a harmonious state. So it might be that people would start looking at themselves, looking at their triggers, and that's what we teach in the book, all about the triggers, and then what your specific triggers are, because you go through a survey and you figure that out, and then you log scenarios and identify what thinking might be contributing to the anger, and how you're behaving that is contributing even more to the anger or harming yourself or others. And so then maybe there are some skills that people are using that can actually help them. And I would encourage, especially people going through a divorce like this, it's going to be very difficult. It's ongoing. The anger can be chronic because of an unhealthy relationship when you're divorcing a spouse. And it may be your own personal issues. It could be both. It probably is both. But I would say that you can only look to yourself to change. And then look at what's working. When is it that you actually are using a coping skill like a timeout, which I've found so many clients and students have been helped by, and how can they implement that timeout on a regular basis? As soon as you feel the anger rearing its head, just say, hey, I have to take a timeout. I'll get back to you on this in an hour or two. And then you go away and you think about the issues. There may be times when you can't do that, like at work, but you can practice it at home. You can look at a situation that may have happened recently and then figure out what you could do differently in order to handle that situation. And assertiveness, I would say, has also been one of the best interventions for my clients, because a lot of times they're not saying what they really think or how they really feel, or at least they're not saying it in a very nice way. Mm-hmm. They may be saying it aggressively. I don't know if that answers your question, Stephanie.
Oh, yes, definitely. So what's your website again?
It's what'sgoodaboutanger.com or just goodanger.com.
And your book is available on that website?
Yes, it's also available on Amazon. You can probably get a little better price on our site. Plus, we also offer courses for couples and individuals and families.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add on the subject about anger management, and the divorce process before we wrap up the show for today?
Well, let me just say that forgiveness is another big area that we talk about, turning your anger into forgiveness. It's hard to believe that you can actually turn your anger into forgiveness, but forgiveness is really the end of anger. And it's very difficult and hard, but it is a choice, and we do talk about that and share how we've done it, and a good process for doing it.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to talk with us today a little bit more about anger and anger management, and we'll get your information about your book and your website on our site, as well as on the bottom of your screen you'll see the website. So just thanks again for joining us today, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Once again, this has been another edition of Divorce Today on DadsDivorce.com. Thanks for tuning in.